We move to our keynote speaker of the day, Dr. Ishrat Hussain. He bears no limitation of his recognition. Dr. Ishrat Hussain started his career as member of Civil Service of Pakistan and then spent over 2 decades at the World Bank. He completed 2 terms as Governor of State Bank of Pakistan and has chaired various commissions and boards related to fiscal reforms and economic policy. He has served as Dean and Director of IBA Karachi and is now Professor Emeritus. Dr. Ishrat is also a busy academic, having written over 35 book chapters, 47 articles and refereed journals, presented over 100 conference papers, and authored over 250 articles in newspapers and magazines. He has received several international and national awards, including the highest civilian award of Nishan-e-Imtiyaz, which is in recognition of his service to his nation. Dr. Ishrat.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let me begin by thanking Talib Karim and the Management Association of Pakistan for affording me this opportunity to address this very distinguished gathering. I'm also delighted to see the younger generation, the students being represented here, and I want to commend the association for involving them because their exposure and their awareness means that we are setting the foundations for our future generation to grasp the kind of the problems and the challenges they are going to face when they grow up. So I must say this is a very important movement which you have, and I would encourage others to involve the younger students because I go all over the country addressing the students. So let me begin that in these days when the economic conditions are quite grim, our younger generation must realize that between 1950 to 1990, for 40 years, Pakistan was one of the fastest growing countries in the world, and its per capita incomes were much higher than those of India and Bangladesh. And we were being visited by many other developing countries as a model how to do development. But since 1990, we have actually regressed and we have not been able to catch up. So we were 60% higher than India and we were 100% higher in per capita terms in Bangladesh, but today both those countries are higher than us. And the word which my very distinguished panelists have described in their presentations, technology, data, digitization, demographics, change in the economic power, climate change, they all can be captured in one word, which I would synthesize as a competitiveness. Those countries from 1990 who have prepared themselves to compete in this global world with globalization as the driving force have actually done extremely well. But we have slipped behind because we did not focus on competitiveness. So my focus this morning is on recapturing Pakistan's past as far as competitiveness of the future is concerned. The challenge of improving competitiveness is quite intricate, as nations do not directly compete. Rather, it is the firms, enterprises, and companies within these nations that engage in competition. And that is very important to realize. So my focus today, with all the very able managers and the members of the association, is on the role of firms in fostering competitiveness. Because we all know a lot as to what government has done bad. There are media, there are books, there are all kind of discourses on what's wrong with media. But 80% of the economy is in the hands of the private sector. The firms, the farmers, the self-employed, and the enterprises. So we have to think about what they can do. While I realize and I recognize that factor endowments, public policies, institutions, macroeconomic conditions, and business environment elements such as tariffs, taxation, regulations, utility pricing, and the ease and cost of doing business are very critical as far as competitiveness is concerned. But I would submit to you that the primary responsibility lies with the individual firms participating in international markets for goods and services. And that is the starting point. Yes, we need a conducive environment with well-functioning governance institutions, a streamlined investment climate, emphasis on human capital, especially the female labor force participation, rationalized tariffs and taxes, and targeted policies promoting exports. But let me also say it takes two to tango. And if the firms in Pakistan do not excel in investing in the workforce, in professionalized management structures, collaboration with international experts, engagement in joint ventures with participation in global value chains, service exports, innovation, and digitalization, they would miss the boat. And they will be much behind other countries who are trying to climb up the ladder. I also do realize that external factors of globalization influence the decision making. But the firms which I have observed in various parts of East Asia, because I spent 20 years studying the economies of Africa and East Asia, they were agile and they were quick to respond to the ever-changing global dynamics. They did not remain static. Stagnancy was not the name of the game. There were no pursuit of fixed points, baselines, benchmarks, and milestones. These are no longer the lexicon of measuring competitiveness. According to the International Trade Center, export competitiveness, what does it mean? It means the capacity of the firms to produce, distribute, and sell products and services more effectively and efficiently than their competitors in other nations. That is how the competitiveness for the firms is defined. So my own reading of Pakistan's economy as a student is that our export leaders should shift their focus away from seeking concessions and subsidies and running to Islamabad with every change in the government, and to focus on exploring new markets, developing new products, conducting research and development, ensuring quality, managing supply chain and logistics, timely delivery, and maintaining positive customer relations. When I talk to the international businesses as to why they do not source their supplies from Pakistan, there are two answers I get consistently over time. One, Pakistanis do not deliver on time as they promise. And secondly, the quality of their samples and the quality of the products they ship are totally different. And that's why we do not want to continue doing business with Pakistan. And this is something which I would very much like our exporters to realize. And some of my previous speakers on the panel, instead of making visits to just United States and Europe, which are the countries, which are the continents, which are the dynamic force of growth in this country, in this world. It's not the United States and Europe. Their growth rate is half of that of East Asian countries. So what they should do is go and visit Shanghai, Lagos, Johannesburg, Manila, Jakarta, Tashkent, Tehran, and Istanbul, because these are the markets which are growing quite rapidly, and we should try to penetrate these markets. Now, why is Pakistan, being a low labor cost country, lagging behind in productivity? Because our workforce produces only 30 to 40% of the output which their Chinese counterparts are doing. So people say, well, China is actually now much more expensive as far as the labor cost is concerned. But if you adjust for the productivity differentials between Pakistani labor and the Chinese labor, you would find that the Pakistani labor today is much higher in cost as far as the Chinese are concerned. So it is not the labor cost per se, but it is the productivity adjusted labor cost, which we call as the unit labor cost, which is very important. And why are we doing that? I speak to my colleagues, my friends in the business sector. Why do you have this contractual labor? Why do you have this daily wage labor? Because you cannot invest and train them because they are transient labor force. And unless you train them with the new techniques of production, you are not able to invest in the productivity. They just consider that getting contractors who brings one set of labor one day and the second set of labor second day, they are actually hurting themselves. Because every 1 rupee of increase in productivity through the profits gives 75 paisas to the owner of the firm, and only 25% goes to the labor. So they are actually the winners if they invest and train, and just like Asif Peer said, upskill and reskill their labor, because things and demands are changing. And if you have 20th century armaments to fight the 21st century war, you won't be able to do that. So that is invest in your workforce. Technical and vocational training, Pakistan has only 1% of its entire educational cohorts in technical and vocational training. So where do we send our labor? Unskilled, semi-skilled, drivers and others, while the Philippines, which sends the semi-skilled and the skilled, gets 4 times remittances on a per capita basis. And the demand today, because of the aging population, even in countries like Japan and Korea, which were very monolithic and ethnically pure, is for IT graduates, for data analysts, for people who are actually indulging in innovative practices. That is where the demand is coming from. And we have to take over these technical and vocational training institutions from the government, and the private sector should manage them, operate them according to the demands. And you don't have to need a degree. Today, Google, for example, doesn't require a degree. They need the certification that you are able to perform the minimum requirements of the job which you are being assigned. So you can have short courses, you can have boot camps, and you can have very much Amazon certificate, Google certificate, Microsoft certificate, which will increase your employability all over the world. The second point I would like to note is that logistics and global value chains are as much a determinant of your competitiveness as the cost of manufacturing. We are still stuck with manufacturing, but manufacturing is just fabrication, is only a small element of the entire product price. This shirt, which I buy from a vendor, whether in Pakistan or outside, is a $50 shirt. But the fabrication cost, whether it is Bangladesh or it is Pakistan or it is Vietnam, is only $5. The remaining $45 are embedded services, including the logistics and the supply chain. And if you become a part of the global supply chain, but you do not have the logistics from the source of your production to the ports in Karachi, which are more expensive than a shipment from Hong Kong to Karachi, then forget about your competitiveness. You cannot compete in this world. And you don't have to have an end-to-end final product. Korea today provides 50% of its exports for components and for intermediates to China. China assembles them. And all of you know the story of Apple. The intellectual capital is that in Silicon Valley. So $3 trillion is the market cap of Apple. Foxconn, which fabricates and assembles from all parts of the world, this Apple phone is only $50 billion of market cap. So where is the value being created? The value being created in the entire value chain. And that is captured by Apple. The third point I would like to say, that services are now become what I call as the cross-border transfer, which was not possible in absence of the digitalization. They are become now possible for us to sit in Karachi and render services to the rest of the world. So you have companies and individuals who are doing work for Sydney, for Melbourne, for the United States, sitting from here. And I'm so glad that I had a chance to see some of the telehealth facilities which have come up in Pakistan, where our female doctors who were being wasted because they were not really employed after their graduation are now sitting at home and giving instructions to a hospital in Matiari and saying, well, this is what you should do. These are the tests you should conduct. This is the first aid you should provide. And that, I think, is something which can be delivered at a low cost utilizing your human resources. So export and services, according to the World Trade Organization, has outpaced goods trade by over 60%. And they project that because technology has enhanced the tradability of the services and the electronic platforms and internet connectivity have expanded access for individuals as well as for small and medium enterprises, all the traditional barriers for exports of goods will be completely dismantled if you move towards these services. We have just started, and Systems is a leader in export of services, but we are still $2 to $3 billion. And even if you account for the money which is left behind in the dollar accounts outside, it may be 5 to 6 billion. You know what? This year, first 8 months of India, which I was looking at the data, they have exported $340 billion dollars of IT exports. They are now one of the leading providers. Look at 340 billion, 8 months, and here we are talking of 5 billion. Although the economic size between Pakistan and India is only 10 times. It used to be 5 times in 1990, it has grown to 10 times. But even if you do that, so if they are exporting 350 billion in a year, just for sake of assumption, at least we should be able to do $35 billion on the same platform. Well, we are doing only $5 billion. So that is another area which I would very much like the people sitting here. And may I submit to you that our traditional businesses who have done extremely well should go into through their family business, the family houses, invest in startups, provide venture capital. Who are the major providers outside all the venture capital funds in Silicon Valley in India? It is, Asim Premji, who is the owner of, one of the largest with the TCS and Infosys. Murthy, who started this. Nilkani, all the big players who have done extremely well in their traditional sense are now the venture capitalists, and they are investing in startups. India has 16 unicorns in 1 year, 2021. After that, 2022, 23 have not been that great, while they have now become number 3 as far as the unicorns are concerned. And this is a reflection of the returns. But we want IPPs, guaranteed returns, denominated in dollars. We don't have to do anything. We get all the windfall gains. We don't want to take risks. And entrepreneurship and private sector does not thrive on guaranteed returns. It thrives on risk-taking. If you're not taking risks, I do not consider you to be a part of a private sector or being entrepreneur. And finally, I think everybody has, my preceding speakers have very eloquently talked about innovation, technology, and digitalization. And I would extend their arguments by saying that if you do not start with the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics right from the school days, and make them so interesting for the students, and particularly for the females, you would be never able to produce the kind of workforce which is required for the 21st century. China, people talk about China a lot. You do not realize that by 2000, the STEM graduates from China were 1/2 of that of the United States. In 2022, there are 3 times more graduates being produced in China in STEM subjects compared to the United States. And why emerging technologies is the platform for the Communist Party's economic vision? Because they have mastered these technologies through investing in their workforce, right from the school days all the way to the PhDs. 50% of the engineering PhDs and science and mathematics PhDs in the United States top universities come from India, China, Vietnam, Korea, Japan. And when I was dean of IBA and I was looking for faculty all over the world, I could hardly find any Pakistani who was in one of the top universities doing their PhDs in these subjects. So finally, start from the school level, give a higher, remuneration to your teachers in science and mathematics, make it interesting. You go to the science museum, and the kids are really enjoying having fun solving the mathematics problems or the physics problems. Why can't we do that right in our schools? So innovation, digitalization, and technology will never be helping us out in our journey. As Asif said, innovation is a journey, it's not a destination, unless we start it today. And I visited Gilgit-Baltistan, and I saw how keen the students at the middle school level were in learning science and mathematics, because the teachers had made it very, very fun and joyful experience. And if GP can do it, why can't we do this throughout our country and lay the foundation for competitiveness? Thank you very much. It is a pleasure listening to the esteemed speakers, and I hope that all of you, being influential leaders in your own respective field, would try to implement in your own limited sense. We have a lot of conferences, a lot of seminars. I go all over the country, but please start taking these ideas towards execution. Thank you very much.